You guys, I have a confession. I'm not the biggest Paper Mario fan.
Don't get me wrong, I love the Thousand Year Door and I quite like the Origami King, but I'm not as familiar with the rest of the Paper Mario series. I only started 64 as a kid, never played Super or Color Splash, and Sticker Star? We don't talk about Sticker Star.
I really like Bug Fables though, that counts.
But I bring all of this up because, for whatever reason, my 2 Paper Mario themed videos are the most viewed on my channel. And as anybody trying to succeed on this f***ing website knows, one surefire way to maximize exposure is to milk any small success you've managed to stumble into.
No creativity allowed here.
So to celebrate the first year anniversary of Paper Mario the Origami King, I'll be satisfying the insatiable YouTube algorithm by playing through every entry in the PM series. Eventually, these are long games, give me some time for this one. And what better place to start than Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars for the Super NES. This game doesn't have the word paper in its title, I'm f***ed.
I'll have to make sure Gino's in the thumbnail.
In all sincerity, if not for Mario RPG, the 1996 collaboration between Nintendo and Square, we wouldn't even have a Paper Mario series to talk about, or the Mario and Luigi series either for that matter, so this really is the perfect chance for me to finally play this beloved game. Quick backstory, the creation of Mario RPG tells a humble tale. Nintendo wanted to throw their most lucrative character in a role-playing setting, Square wanted to develop an RPG that would appeal to the American market as the genre was still quite niche at the time. The two companies met and realized that they can make unspeakable amounts of money if they work together. Boom, a capitalistic love story as old as time. And speaking of RPGs, let me make my own biases clear right off the bat. I am not a fan of the genre. I don't find turn-based combat to be engaging, and leveling up mechanics are just not enough to motivate me as a player if I'm not having fun on a moment-to-moment basis. This is an important time to remind you that I'm just some random dipshit. Please understand that I'm not saying that RPGs are objectively bad, and I sincerely do get and respect why they're so beloved, but I know how people on the internet get about this topic, so it's worth pointing this all out before moving on. Mario RPG tells a standard tale of Bowser kidnapping Peach. Gotcha. Yeah, the plot of this game is nothing like I thought it would be. I really was under the impression that this was a Mario versus Bowser situation, but boy am I happy that I was wrong. Yeah, while the game starts off with Bowser abducting Peach, things immediately bounce around all over the place. But to make a long story short, the main goal here is to collect 7 star pieces spread all over the place in an effort to not only defeat Exor, the friendly talking sword who crashes Bowser's castle, but also Smithy, this freak who wants to rule the land by ridding the world of wishes and replacing them with weapons.
Sick sh**.
The narrative of this game looks a bit wacky on the surface with various twists and turns, but underneath it all is a fairly simple story told very effectively. I felt consistently motivated to get back to Bowser's Keep and f*** up this giant sword. I mean, why wouldn't I? It's a giant sword. And of course, along the way, you befriend several partner characters, those being Mallow, Gino, Bowser, and Toadstool. Let me say right off the bat that I squealed like a toddler when Bowser joined the party. I didn't know that he wouldn't advance, and I'm a massive sucker for the trope of the hero and villain having to team up to fight a greater evil. But let's rewind a bit. The first new friend is Mallow, a tadpole, who later hopes to find his real parents. I like Mallow a lot. He's silly and endearing right off the bat, and I'm a big fan of Tadpole, so his perfect tadpole design is right up my alley.
On an unrelated note, I got knocked into a concussion during the Tadpole Pond section. Did I miss any important story stuff there?
Next up on the roster is Gino. Gino! This guy, let me tell you guys something about Gino. This guy has a pretty big fan base on social media, and he's cool. I kinda like Mallow more, honestly.
How did one of you already mail me this death threat?
No, Gino is really cool. He's got an aura of mysticism, which gives him a ton of appeal. We never really see characters like this in the Mario universe, and besides maybe Rosalina's depiction in Mario Galaxy, I can't think of any other comparisons. He's also effective in combat and features this rad Pinocchio design. I still like Mallow more though, sorry. But those are just the partners unique to this game. There's also the aforementioned Bowser, who joins the team in order to get his castle back. I love Bowser, and I don't think he left my party once after joining. I enjoy the hell out of his dopey comedic side that pretty much all future Mario RPGs would emulate. I love his function within the story. I even enjoy his batshit freak design. I am very happy with Bowser. But last on the docket is Toadstool, aka Peach. I'm just gonna keep calling her Peach from here on. It's one less syllable for me. Anyway, Peach actually asks if she can get in on the action about halfway through the story, and I really appreciate how she's portrayed here. She has a level of agency that I don't really think we've seen since. Well, maybe we have. I already said I haven't played Super or Color Splash, but this is some of the most personality I think she's ever gotten as a character, and I really wish that Nintendo would bring back this side of her. It's way more interesting than the tired damsel in distress cliche. But while all of the characters are excellently portrayed story-wise, especially Mallow and Bowser in my opinion, it's the combat that really allows them all to shine. Mario RPG features, surprise, turn-based combat, a thing I generally do not like, with your attacks and defense strengthened by performing quick time button presses, a thing that I do like in this context. I think the combat in this game is not only good, but good enough. Honestly, it's exactly what you'd expect, and it was clearly solid enough as it directly inspired both Paper Mario and and Mario and Luigi. See, I think I'm fairly easy to please. Give me a button to click at a specific time to do extra damage or whatever, and suddenly I can tolerate 100 more of these fights than usual. Additionally, they scale in difficulty gradually, feature tons of fun and unique enemy designs such as Chained Kong and others, and you level up and learn new special attacks fairly often. I don't love the weapon and armor progression as there's not a ton of strategy involved. For the most part, you purchase or find weapons and armor and they evolve in a fairly linear fashion. There won't be a ton of moments where you really have to weigh the strengths of one option versus another, but besides that, I don't have a ton of complaints. If you like turn-based battles, you'll probably like what's going on here.
Also, God bless this game for having no random encounters.
As for how the partners fit into combat, you're always forced to invite milquetoast-ass Mario to the party, but you get to choose 2 out of your 4 buddies to fight alongside you. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Mario's fairly balanced as you'd expect, Mallow has a lot of elemental attacks, Geno is an absolute glass cannon, Bowser is the big strongman and he's Bowser so he's got that going for him, and Peach is an incredible healer. Seriously, put the lazy shell armor on her and suddenly she's a walking ICU. I would have liked the option to sub Mario out from time to time, even if just for standard battles, but Nintendo probably didn't want all the other characters asking, "Where's Mario?" whenever Mario's not on screen, so fair enough. But even outside of combat, there's a lot to like about this game. It's just a good time, even exploring aimlessly feels worthwhile as there are quite a few side quests as well as tons of secrets to find. Unfortunately, there is a fairly linear world map system, which isn't my favorite thing in the world, but this is the first Mario RPG and the map at least looks interesting enough, so this still manages to feel like a grand world in spite of that. Also, level design is solid. I would argue that it outdoes TTYD in some respects, and there's even legitimate platforming that helps things feel more Mario-esque. I will say that these moments can be a bit frustrating. It's not always easy gauging your jumps in isometric 3D, but it does work for the most part, and I appreciate it being here. And my god, speaking of isometric 3D, this game has a wonderful visual style. I've always been a fan of old school pre-rendered 3D models, and I think they nailed it here. The character designs are all so interesting and pop right off the screen. Mario and friends are insanely expressive, and everything is just so vibrant and pleasant to look at. Sure, I recognize that the visuals are definitely dated in some ways, but they still work for me and my sensibilities. Also, in terms of my sensibilities, let me say that this game features one of my favorite soundtracks out of any Mario game, well, at least any of the RPGs. Sure, there aren't a ton of songs, given the fact that this is a SNES game, and just about all of them do repeat, but every single one is just so good. Even the standard battle theme, the overworld tracks, the Forest Maze Geno song, and oh my god, the boss music. This is definitely a quality over quantity situation, and I couldn't stop tapping my feet even as enemies were beating the shit out of me. At one point, and this is not a joke, I was jamming to the battle theme so hard that I actually got a headache and had to take a break.
Who would say something that embarrassing on the internet?
So to recap, this game has an extremely appealing aesthetic, a phenomenal soundtrack, tons of fun explorative moments, good combat, well-written characters, great mini-games. Yeah, there are a lot of mini-games too, forgot to mention that. And overall, I just had a lot of fun with Mario RPG, which is why I didn't finish it.
Who is sending me all these death threats?
And now it's time to pay off what I said up earlier. Remember how I said I'm not a big RPG fan? Well, this is definitely the most RPG-ish RPG I've enjoyed to this extent. Don't get me wrong, this is still baby's first RPG in a lot of ways. Like, it's never exceptionally difficult or fleshed out in its mechanics, and it's still equal parts Mario and Square, so to speak. But while playing, I definitely recognize elements of it that I don't typically enjoy in games. You know, the progression mechanics, occasional grindy moments, and so on. But still, I was having quite a good time at first, falling into the world and story and getting better at the battles. That isn't to say I didn't have complaints. There are some moments, such as the Karo sewers and forest maze, where the level design is pretty intentionally confusing in a way that wasn't exactly fun, it was just confusing. I'm sure that issue irons itself out on repeat playthroughs, but feeling lost in a drab environment like the sewers wasn't exactly the most exciting thing in the world. Also, while I said that the action commands allowed me to enjoy 100 more battles than I'm normally able to, eventually it got to that 101st battle and I really started feeling drained. This is a reminder that you have stepped into the die opinion corner, where I say things that are 100% subjective that you don't have to agree with whatsoever. But I personally can only handle so much turn-based combat before getting so fucking bored. And see, Paper Mario figured out a really simple way to trick my brain into tolerating even more than 100 of these battles. Those games, well, the first ones at least, lowered attack power and health to their absolute bare minimums. In Paper Mario, Mario has like 10 HP and the enemies start off with around 3. This incredibly bastardized system makes battling feel so much more streamlined, but that just isn't here, unfortunately. Some attacks do like 250 damage and seemingly amount to nothing. Again, personal preference, and this game is absolutely not hard, it just got tedious to me and I started running away away from enemies pretty early on to avoid said tedium. But that isn't exactly surprising for me. I knew it would happen, but I still enjoyed the game despite it. However, there definitely was a point where I really started losing patience. See, the game is essentially broken up into 7 chapters, each chapter culminating in a boss fight where you earn a star piece. This is all well and good, and the first chunks of the game are paced phenomenally. They perfectly balance the battles, exploration, minigames, puzzles, and story stuff. But then around chapter 6, I felt that things kinda started to bog down, and the game just turned into standard battle, mini boss, standard battle, mini boss, standard battle, you get the idea. The game became very predictable to me, and worst of all, the final 2 chapters are just so long, or at least so long compared to those that came before them. Chapter 6 especially goes in so many different directions, introducing tons of important antagonists that are barely built up at all. Actually, let's talk about that point for a second. It's one of the issues I have with the game as a whole. With the exception of Exor and Smithy, none of the game's many villains are really fleshed out. They all just kinda show up. It makes sense as they're mostly just Smithy's minions, but very rarely does a battle even feel established. These are all just empty damage sponges. There is one major exception to the rule, that being Booster, this Wario-looking asshole who manages to find Peach after she quite literally falls into his lap. He's a strong presence throughout his entire chapter, meaning that the inevitable confrontation you have with him is much more satisfying. I forgot to mention that the fight with Booster is actually optional. You only fight Booster if you mess up in a mini game during his section, which is really lame, and it kind of contradicts everything I said about Anyway, everything that I said about Booster also applies to Valentina from chapter 6. Anyway, let's get back to the show! Yeah! Most other mini-bosses and bosses, on the other hand, kind of just show up for a second before attacking you. I don't know, it's not the end of the world, but it always felt a bit lame to me. Anyway, while chapter 6 was a bit of a drag for me, chapter 7 ramps it up to another level. Chapter 7 is honestly just a series of battles, which makes sense as it's the final stretch of the game. I get it, and I don't think any of what I'm describing right now is bad. It was just enough to wear me down. At one point, for example, you stumble across 6 doors in Bowser's Castle, 2 of them featuring puzzles, 2 featuring platforming, and 2 featuring a series of battles. You only need to complete 4 out of the 6 to proceed, but the ones you get paired with are totally random, and the one battle door I got featured 12 fights in a row. Even writing this down right now is exhausting me. This was one of the most boring moments of the entire game for me. I really cannot tolerate 12 turn-based battles in a row, and I can guarantee you that I would have given up if I got that second battle door. My brain is an empty cave that can only handle so much. I'm sorry. But anyway, while the final chapter of the game is really thematically cool, featuring a rad battle with Exor and a final fight that I think takes place in hell, it actually ended up being that final battle that finally broke me down. As established, the main baddie of this game is Smithy, who's been creating all of the enemies invading Mario's world. And as a character and design-wise, he's super neat, and it was really exciting to finally encounter him. As an opponent, however, he is a brick wall with much more HP than any boss that came before him, and some attacks that even managed to take down my once invincible Peach. To be clear, I don't think this battle is hard. Like, it's not impossible, it's fairly straightforward, but it's just so long. And as I mentioned, early in the game, I started running away from pretty much every overworld battle I could, meaning that by the time I got to Smithy, I was absolutely not strong enough to handle him quickly. Each attempt was a slog of constant healing, reviving, and after 2 chapters of simmering disinterest, I finally made the choice to just stop. Look, not everybody will agree with what I'm about to say, and I can respect that. But the way I see it, video games are supposed to be fun, and I had a hell of a lot of fun with Mario RPG. It's a very well-made game, and it does so many things right. But despite the final cutscene being quite literally right around the corner for me, I don't think it's worth dragging out anymore. I can spend hours of my life chiseling away at this boss and growing more and more sick of a game that even I'm surprised I like this much, or I can just appreciate the experience I had here, put it down, and watch the final cutscene on YouTube. It's the coward's way out. I can't technically say I finished the game, fine. But I honestly don't care, because I enjoyed what I played, I already remember it fondly, and I'd rather have that than the alternative. Mario RPG is a fantastic game. It might not be the perfect game for me, but it's absolutely fantastic. And I am so glad I chose not to finish it. And that's Mario RPG. But what came next? Well, the game sold quite well, even in North America, despite releasing mere months before the launch of the N64. So Nintendo and Square celebrated their critical and commercial success by getting a divorce and never developing a game together ever again. But hey, at least Geno lives on in the hearts and minds of fans, and also that one guest appearance in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga that got removed in the 3DS remake.
Mallow's dead, though.
But worry not, diehard MRLO TSS fans, the world of this game wouldn't be lost forever. Several locations from this title make an appearance in children's book Mario and the Incredible Rescue, published by Scholastic Inc. in 2006. The Incredible Rescue tells a simple story of Mario saving Peach and features locales such as the Karo Sewers and Tadpole Pond, as well as some cameos from characters who never appeared after this game. What the f is up with this cover art? Why is N64 era Mario and Boo right besides GameCube era Luigi and Boo? This makes no sense. The N64 had been retired for 5 years at this point. Who designed this?
So those are my thoughts on Mario RPG, an incredible game that I ran away from at the last possible second because I'm an absolute coward who doesn't like turn-based combat. Oh, and I didn't even attempt to fight the secret boss Coolix either. Let's hope admitting all this on the internet doesn't make anybody too mad.
2 hours later.